Okay, everybody. Sandy Nelson here from RC2 Cowboy Church, and me, Patrick, from the same church, and we're here to talk about canning today. And we're just going to do a quick intro. So, the reason why we're doing all this, we're not just talking about canning altogether. We're talking about self-sufficiency in the event that things happen, and that that we'll be able to keep our family fed and
Yes.
take care of them all together.
Yes.
All right, so with that said, why don't you tell us why you bother doing this?
Well, the reason that I can is for two reasons. One, I love to grow a garden, and when my garden is producing well, guess what? I have to do something with the food.
Mm-hmm.
So when I can my food, I know exactly what's in it. I know that there's not going to be anything in my vegetables except for a little bit of canning salt, unless I choose to add extra ingredients, and they will all be natural, homegrown spices that I use.
Okay.
And
go ahead.
it keeps us fed
And prepared.
and keeps me out of the grocery store.
How long do the vegetables last once they're canned?
Well, the U.S. government says they will last 5 years
Okay.
in the can.
All right.
You can eat them longer than that. Their nutritional value starts to decrease at 5 years.
Maybe even like 10 or 15. 20, okay.
And as long as your metal lasts.
Yeah.
On your lids.
By that time, you ought to be able to get your garden going.
You can have more gardens growing by then.
All right, so I see this thing here. That's a heavy-duty looking thing. Like, I could use that as a boat anchor if I wanted to.
Absolutely.
So tell us about why that's really expensive, right?
This is a very expensive all-American pressure canner. One of the best. It's got the lids here, the hooks that will keep it from, as people say, oh, it blew up and blew a hole in my ceiling. Well, I've never seen that happen, and I've heard stories, but it's never happened in my world.
But we don't have to. We don't have to go this expensive.
Oh, absolutely not. No.
But it's like doing photography. So people kind of get in it. They tend to keep buying more.
Keep buying bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But this one right here will hold 18 pints, which is awesome.
Right.
Or it will hold 7 quarts. And 7 quarts of food in here is a lot. 18 pints is huge. So that's the reason that I have this, is I can process my food quickly.
Let's talk about time. I noticed the other day we talked about doing this video. You mentioned that we need different times for what we're doing.
Yes.
So like right now we're going to be doing green beans for demonstration, and that's going to take like 3 hours.
From start to finish. That's cleaning your beans, getting your jars ready, getting everything pressured up, and once it's pressured up, I don't know. I don't have an exact time. I have to look at my book because, again, there's so many things that I can't do.
But it's not like you're not timing it per se. You're going to a certain pressure. It's the process.
You're going to the pressure first. Yeah. And once you reach your pressure, which is 10 pounds in Texas, then you start timing. Okay. And then once you've gone to your 10 pounds of pressure, then like green beans, I believe they're like 20 minutes in the pressure canner. Okay. And then you turn the fire off and let the pressure go down naturally. Okay. If you try to move the weight, it will break your jars.
So is there a guide available? I know you mentioned this book here, which is...
There's many guides available.
But this is to tell us that green beans go a certain amount of time,
yes,
and then something else may go different.
Yes, absolutely.
But you need a guide for that.
You have to have a guide for that, because if you don't do, like if you're going to be canning meat, if you only do it for 20 minutes, you're going to get botulism in there. Yeah. And we can't afford that. No.
I think you said the beef stock took like
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
It doesn't take, beef and chicken stock takes little or no time, but there's no meat in there. It's only juice. Okay.
All right, so that's the intro. We're going to start out here in just a second on probably cleaning and things, preparation.
There you go. So we're going next.
All right. Okay, Sandy, first thing we're going to do is...
We're going to wash our jars in hot soapy water, and then you're going to check the rings. The lid right here, because if there's a crack, there's a chip. If you haven't gotten all of the lids have a substance on them.
Here's one.
Yeah, I don't know what this is called. It's some kind of a plastic, but if it stays on long, it will stick to the jar.
Okay.
So
And if there was a chip there, obviously it wouldn't hold a seal.
If there's a chip, you just put it in the trash can or put it over for your daughter's makeup.
There you go.
So what I do is I wash and I rinse. And after I've washed and I rinsed, I do the next step, which is to put them in to sterilize.
Okay.
Not only sterilize, but I heat them because I'm going to be putting hot water in there. And if you put hot water in a cold jar, guess what happens?
Hot water, kaboosh.
They break.
Yes.
So the first thing we do after this is we're going to put them in my oven, which I've already got up to 250 degrees.
Okay.
And we're going to set them in there, and they need to be in there about 10 minutes.
So Sandy, you have washed all these.
Washed them.
And now we're going to the next step, which is?
Sterilizing them and heating them so they won't break.
Okay.
So that being said, we're going to put this thing right here in this oven. And the oven is on 250 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm going to turn it on. And I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes.
10 minutes at 250?
10 minutes at 250. And you can leave them in as long as you want. It will not hurt them. Because 250 is not going to break anything.
We'll see you in 10 minutes. Okay, Sandy, while they are sterilizing, actually, we're going to talk about, you've been doing some of these beans already.
Absolutely.
So, but you left a few to show how that works.
Yes, so how that works is there's two ways you can do it. One, you can do it the old granny style and pinch, but guess what?
Pinch the ends off.
Pinching the ends off is like a lot of work when you do one bean, one bean, one bean.
Okay.
So what I do, because, well, I like to get everything done quickly because I have more things to do today than this, is I take my beans and I put them all together. Oops, there goes one on the floor, but it's okay. We take this and we lay these beans down.
I knew you were going to do that.
And we cut the ends off. You do waste some, but
hey,
like if I wasn't...
How much is your time worth?
Exactly. And if I wasn't in a hurry, I would take all of those pieces that are this long and save them. But today, I'm going to leave them laying there.
That's good to know.
So I'm going to take this and I'm going to get them as even as I can. Make sure I get all the ends cut off. So that's the next step.
Okay.
And from there, we're going to take these beans and I'm going to cut them. You know what green beans look like in a can, folks? They're about 1.5 inches long. So I'm going to cut these beans to 1.5 inches long. Now, some of them are going to be 1.5 inches, some will be 3 inches, and some will be 1/4 inch.
I mean, you know, it's what Grandma Walton would do, right?
Absolutely.
You know,
and she would feed her family and
it.
make them happy and smile. So I'm going to take these beans, and I'm going to chop a bunch of them. As such, like I say, I'm not going to try to go for perfection because we don't have perfection around here.
All right, so I'm going to shut the video off then, since it's more of the same, right?
It's going to be a lot of the same, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how I wash them.
Okay, sounds good.
Halfway clean.
Okay, wanted just to add some things. Sandy was mentioning that she uses these water heaters.
Yes.
And you could use a pot or you could use whatever, but she chooses that for speed, right? So
I choose these for speed and for I don't have to use so much muscle when I'm dealing with a bunch of boiling water. This right here is really easy to pick up. If I had a 3-gallon pot on the stove, I would have to have a ladle or something to pour.
Right, well, what are we doing with them?
These are going to go poured over the beans. Once the beans have been washed and cut and put in the jars, I will pour this water over the beans so that they will not break the jar, because you have to have hot water in order for your jars not to crack.
Right, and I noticed you're putting in the colander there, you're putting the beans.
Yes, I'm putting the beans in the colander as I cut them so we can get them washed and make sure they're good and clean.
Okay.
I haven't put too many in there yet, but we're going to put all these in the colander.
Okay.
And
So we'll be out in a minute.
Yes,
Back in a
we'll be
minute.
back.
Don't take any of this for granted, Sandy. Remember, you're dealing with John Q. Public. Right again. Now.
So I take my beans and I run them under warm water and rub them around to make sure there's no dirt. They're in a colander so the water and the dirt runs through. So if there's any dirt from your garden, which is really easy to get, then you're clean. So there's my beans in there clean, and my timer is now going off on my oven, so my jars are ready for my beans to be put in.
All right, you want to go grab that?
Sure, let me grab that out of the oven. And it looks like we should be ready.
Nice and sterile.
So we don't touch the tops of our jars.
Oh yeah, don't do that.
I just did this one, so we're going to put that one to the side.
Because that would be like oils from your fingers.
The oils from your finger will stop that. Now we can fix that, but you can also get germs in there with your hands.
Yeah.
I mean, my hands are fairly clean because I've been using lots of water and soap. But, so the next thing that I would use, and I'll step away from the camera, is my handy jar grabber.
Yeah.
Because these jars are hot, because they're going to come out of a 250-degree oven. So you're going to take these jars and pick them up like this, and you don't get burned.
Yes.
So the next thing in the process, let me turn that light on so I can see a little better, is to put the salt in the jar.
Okay, what kind of salt?
We're going to use, I use Morton's canning and pickling salt.
And why is that special?
This is special because it doesn't have an anti-caking agent in it. So when you put this in your jars, it doesn't discolor your water. It still stays beautiful.
And it says for preserving and pickling.
Yeah. And it does, it's all natural. And it's even got recipes on the back, so you're all good. But anyway, it's really good salt. I use this. I personally keep some in a jar. And the reason I keep them in a jar is because it's hard to get a teaspoon down in here.
Right.
And I don't know what's going to be on my spoon, so I just keep it in here, and it's all ready to use. I just take the lid off. Kind of simple here, but it keeps it really clean and sterile inside. So I use that with a spoon.
Okay.
And we will put this back in the cabinet. I don't need that today.
All right. We good for that segment? Okay, Sandy was just looking at the definitive guide. Once again, the Blue Book from Ball, and there's, I guess, other sources available, but she was looking specifically at where is it?
Wrong side.
Wrong side. Okay.
Wax bean.
Okay, yes. So, beans, green snap, and wax. And it kind of gives us there. So what'd you find out there, Sandy, on that?
Well, it shows that you're supposed to put a half a teaspoon for pint and a teaspoon for quart. And you're going to can your green beans.
Of salt.
Of salt, yeah, half a teaspoon of salt for a pint.
Okay.
And a teaspoon for, and this is a half a teaspoon. And if I open it all the way up, it would give me a whole teaspoon. But that'd make my beans kind of soft.
Are you going to do it now?
Yeah.
Let's catch this. This is world famous cooking here.
The world famous. We're going to take this spoon and we're going to put it right in here, measured. I'm going to pour that in there and this one in here. And then we're going to move on along to each jar and put the same amount in each. And with that being said, I think I got every one of them done.
Good deal.
So we're ready to move to the next step.
What is the next step?
The next step is going to be to boil our water.
Okay. So we're going to wait for it to boil and then we'll go to the next step, right?
Well, it'll take just a few minutes and we'll move right on to the next step because I just turned that on.
Okay.
So our next step is I'm going to take these lids that I'm going to put on my jars and I'm going to put them in this pan with just a little bit of water to cover each one of them. And here's another step, guys. If you'll take your lids and turn them back and forth with each other, they won't stick together.
Oh, face each other, right?
Yeah, make sure you take lids and run one, and such like that, and do them like this.
Oh, that's a cute little...
And they don't stick when you have them in your water.
Nice.
You can separate them out really easy.
So just a little water, and then you're going to boil that.
Just a little water. I'm gonna put it on the fire. I don't want it boiling like
212.
like, yeah. I just want it really, really warm.
Okay.
So there's
So just going to cover it with
I'm
water.
just gonna cover it with water as such. You can see it. They're just covered. And then I'm gonna take it over here and I'm gonna put it on this burner. And I'm gonna turn it on really low.
You're literally putting this on the back burner.
Actually on the back burner. Now I'm gonna take my pressure cooker and prepare it now.
Let me get... Your assistant just spoke up.
I'm gonna run out here and get me a quart jar.
Okay.
So I will know what a quart is because...
Did you lose your power?
I did.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's that. I'm gonna take this quart jar and I'm gonna fill it with water. I'm gonna pour it in my canner and get my canner heated up because without the canner, we can't can.
Okay, so you gotta put water in there to
Put
heat.
water in here, and I'll go ahead and put hot water in here so it will make it a little quicker than putting cold.
Okay, well, that's true.
If I just fill this up, And it takes a long time to fill a quart, y'all. You don't think so, but it does. And then it goes into my canner. And for this particular canner, for green beans, I need 2 quarts in here, so I will add 1 more.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Meanwhile, that water is heating up over there. It's making its magic presence known.
It is doing that, and now this is going to be making its presence known because I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. I'm going to turn it on medium heat because I don't want it to get hot too fast.
And then there's a shot of those tops, lids being heated.
The lids are heating.
And just to restate, you're not boiling that, you're just warming them.
Warming them, yes. They don't need to be boiled. Now, when I'm getting ready to put my beans in my jar, which my jar has salt in it now, I'm going to take the beans that are in the colander and pour them in here or put them in here. I use my hands.
Drained?
They will be drained,
okay.
Yes. And I'm going to use the funnel that I have. The reason I use this funnel, this is old, it's like this. It goes inside here and it keeps my lid from having anything touch it other than my hands. Now I'm still going to clean that lid once I get through putting my beans in there. I'm going to take a paper towel that's been moistened with vinegar. And vinegar cuts most everything.
Okay.
If I got grease on here with my hands or whatever, that will stop it from sealing properly.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take these beans and I'm going to drop them, which normally these jars are really hot.
Okay.
I've let them cool down way too much. So we're going to have to reheat our jars because I should not be able to hold that jar.
I got you.
And that was too many beans. You want to leave a 1-inch headspace. So
once
you put your beans in here.
1 inch. You want 1 inch of headspace.
Usually right here at the bottom of this ring would be 1 inch.
So we're saying fill the water up to there.
And yes.
Oop, yeah.
And once you put your water in here, you want to take a wooden handled spatula and poke down in the sides.
Okay.
To get the bubbles out, because all in here you're going to have places that bubbles can form, and you want all the bubbles out because if you don't have it.
Once again, this should be too hot to handle.
It should be too hot to handle.
Okay.
I should be using, but again, I let them cool.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I let them cool way down.
Okay.
So our next step in this process is getting our beans
into the jars?
Into the jars and the lids on with the rings.
Okay.
So here, I've got my canner. And my canner needs to be turned on. It needs to have water in it. I actually put 2 quarts of water in this canner. I've already added the water, but all I did was pour 2 quarts in there. And I turned it on. I turned it on medium high, and now I've got it on low because it's steaming. So it's warm.
Is it boiling or just steaming?
No, just steaming.
And you don't have the top on.
I don't have the top on because if I put the top on, then we'd be pressuring up, and we don't want to pressure up until we get our jars in there.
Okay.
So right now I'm getting ready to pull my jars out of the oven. We kind of messed up a little earlier, and the temperature got low. So we're going to redo these so that when I pick them up, I'm going to pick them up with this handler because again, it should be hot enough that I can't touch it with my hand.
But you got to get the rest of the beans in there, obviously. And all
Absolutely.
That. Yeah.
So what I'll do is, as soon as we get back up to heat, when we get back up to heat in our oven, and I've got my 250 degrees on there for a few minutes, then I will pull the whole tray out. We'll immediately salt and immediately put the beans in.
We'll just, at that point, we'll just run the film, and then you can get after it.
Absolutely. What we're doing now is I am filling these jars with the beans. I've already salted, and the jars are hot, so we're not touching them because, again, they are very warm at this point. And my next thing is going to, after I finish filling these up, is I'm going to go back and pour hot water in them. And the reason I'm pouring hot water in them is it speeds up the process of canning.
All right.
Now, I've got a few too many here, so we're going to take those down.
That's all right.
So my next step is going to be to take my boiling water that I have over here, and I'm going to pour boiling water in each jar.
Okay.
Now,
so we've got the salt on the bottom.
salt, boiling water up to 1 inch headspace.
Yeah.
Turn this back over.
I'm trying not to get in her way, by the way.
Yeah, he's trying to stay out of my way. It's really hard because I'm like really, I move a lot. And anybody that knows me knows that I move a lot. So this is just the filling process. Again, I'm probably going to have to remove a few beans from each of these because it appears that I have
A little bit higher than what you want.
too many beans for the pot.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the rest of my water that's almost boiling. I hear it over here making some noise. So we're going to call it good. We're going to pour it in here. Here.
And once again, we could have used a pot on the stove.
But these, for me, for elderly people like me, these really are light. And you don't have to worry about putting your arm down in a pot and getting burns, because I've had many burns right here on my arms from reaching down in the pot.
Yep.
And these don't burn. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little spatula, and it has a wooden handle.
Mm-hmm.
And I take this wooden handle, and it has multiple uses because it also makes butter. But I take this and I run it down in my jars to make sure that there's no air bubbles left in there and all the beans are actually in the water.
Mm-hmm.
To see how that one did, that was hot. That needs more water in it because I didn't get quite enough water in that particular jar.
Okay.
And then there'll be one more step. That has too much water in there, so we'll take a little bit of that out.
And put it in the other, from that jar to the other one.
Yeah, but I'd have to hold it,
true.
and I can't hold it because it's really hot. So I'm going to take my water that's here, that's still hot, and I'm going to put a little extra water in that one, and a little extra in that one, and the rest of them look good.
Okay.
This one, actually, I don't understand why it's raised up, but it's got...
Well, it's kind of tilted, it looks like. Yeah.
Do it again. But it's above the beans. See, the beans are not going to the bottom. They're floating up.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
And
interesting.
Probably because I have too much water in there. Yeah. We're starting to go down now that I've got that done.
Okay.
All right. So my next step, folks, in this canning process is I'm going to take... Where'd I put that vinegar? There it is. I'll take this vinegar. It's 5% vinegar. I'm not going to pour it in the jar at all.
This is a Price is Right game, and she's
it.
going to be guessing the price here in a minute.
I'm going to take this vinegar, and I'm going to wet this cloth, and then I'm going to squeeze it out really good, because I don't want the vinegar in the jar. I only want to wipe the rim. And so, again, the jars are hot, so I'm not going to touch them. But I'm going to wipe around each jar as such, and that way if I got any oil on there from my hands or from the spatula that I used or whatever, then
it'll take care of it.
It would be taken care of. Now I have my lids. I have my lids that I put on.
We heated those up.
The fire to heat.
Not boiled, but just heated.
Not boiled. And then I'm going to use my trusty little magnet grabber.
And that comes in a kit that you can buy online related to canning.
And I'm going to take it and I'm going to drop it on there. Sometimes they stick together because the water will get in between them. So again, this is the easiest way, especially if you're using boiling water, and those are pretty hot. I just try to ignore the heat and go on about my business. So there we go. Now that is that step. And then the next step is to take my trusty rings. And these rings are all different colors, but they go on here. And you only want to put these rings on finger tight.
Okay.
You don't want to pick your jars up.
Because if you put them...
2 reasons. Because they're really hot. And...
if you tighten them too much, what would happen?
You don't get your, hold on, that's my word. You need to leave it because you're pulling the pressure out of the jar, And if these are too tight, then it can't go past the seal to get the pressure out of the jar. So that this jar, when you open a jar, you know how it goes pop.
Yeah.
Well, these will do the same thing.
Okay.
When I bring these out of the canner, they're going to, as soon as I get them on the cabinet, you're going to start hearing these little pop, pop. Well, that's this seal.
So you're literally just barely snugging it.
I'm just barely turning it down. I don't, because you have to leave it open so it can pull from the inside of the jar to get all of the bubbles, the stuff that's in there that doesn't need to be in there, which is air. Quit doing this, Andy.
A little hot, huh?
Yeah, keep grabbing it.
Maybe you get that little...
Where'd I put that back? Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. Y'all, I'm a little dingy today, but there ain't nothing I need.
Well, there's a lot going on, with this process, timing-wise.
And you have to do it kind of fast. So here we go. We have 9 quarts, and again, I'm going to go back and tighten just a tiny bit. And now they're ready.
Good deal.
For me to pick up with my trusty little tool, which is called a jar grabber.
Jar grabber. That's a highly technical name.
I don't know what they're really called. But I
think they're called grabber jars.
Grabber jars. And I drop them, literally, I set them down into this hot pan.
All right.
And we're going to go around and around. So we're going to go sideways from side to side. And my aunt told me this, and I don't remember why she told me to do it that way.
By the way, I don't know if we said this, but we put on, we did say we put 2 quarts of water in there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
We did.
And do you think some of it steamed out?
Not enough to hurt, because this is only a 20-minute process. Now, if I was doing meat...
But I'm noticing that there's just a little bit of water on that, on the very bottom. And there is a little plate on the bottom, by the way, that I don't think we mentioned.
Yes, I have another one here, and you can look at it. This is a plate that you actually put. Now, if I were going to do a double level.
So it was on there.
Yeah, it's on like so. If I was going to do a double level of jars, which this will hold, I would set this on top of here.
Brilliant.
And my other jars would sit on top of it.
Okay, good deal.
So, and that way they would be kept
But
separated.
anyway, that's on the very bottom.
But this is on the bottom to keep your jars from getting too hot and breaking.
Good deal. Okay.
I can't put these in there like that. Have too much water or not enough beans or something. I don't know what it is. Because if I did that, we would have no beans in there when we got through cooking.
I guess it's okay if they touch, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're gonna touch.
There we go.
Yeah, they're gonna touch side by side. And then that one goes in here, and the last one goes right in the center.
All right.
Now for this particular canner, guys, this is called an All-American canner. I'm sure it's not the top of the line, but it's my top of the line. I'm going to take some Vaseline and I'm going to put it right here because this particular canner does not have a ring. It doesn't have a rubber seal, a gasket that closes it off. This actually closes itself off with the Vaseline. Now this is quite greasy feeling still from the last time I used it. I washed it, but it still has that Vaseline feel. So I'm going to step right over here to this drawer, which I didn't pull out, and I hope I have a tube of Vaseline.
There you go.
And I do. So I'm going to take just a tiny amount. Doesn't take much. Takes about that much. So which is not much. And I'm going to put a daub here and a daub here. And I'm going to run my finger around. This is really warm because I've had this fire on under here for a while. But it won't burn you. And then I'm going to put this on the outside because this is going to touch that ring. So I'm going to take it and run it all the way around the edges. And if you'll notice, there's a V in the middle here.
A little groove.
A little groove. This groove is the front.
So it's,
So this has an arrow on the top of it, and it lines up as such.
All right.
Okay. Now here, when you're putting these on, you try your best, because you got latches here that you got double latches. It's got this latch and it has this latch. So when you're putting it on, you make sure all your latches touch. Like this one here is around the edge of that. Okay. And then you take
it's kind of like a wheel on a car. You kind of do them diagonally.
Absolutely. You do it diagonally, and you'll take this one, and when you tighten it down, you want to get down on its level. down like this. And you try your best to keep this as level as possible.
Yeah,
And, you know, you try to get this lid to be level.
I got you.
And then once you've got it on, which I don't have this one on yet. There we go. Don't know how straight it is.
So we're not necessarily saying, what we're saying is that this gap needs to be about the same all the way around.
This gap needs to be the same all the way around.
Yeah.
And I'm a little high on this side.
Yeah, you're okay, there we go. That one's.
I'm a little high over there, but that's close enough.
This one's clamped a little bit early. There, now try it. Oops.
We're good enough. We're good enough. It's close enough to level. It's not, it doesn't have to be exactly. It's just do your best.
Yeah.
You know, and again, you're only going to get it so much because it is what it is.
And I noticed you're not just clamping them down.
No,
you're just snugging it.
Just finger tight.
Yep.
Because I want to be able to take it off just as easy.
All right.
So now is the time. I'm going to turn my temperature up on high.
Okay. On high.
And we're going to wait.
Okay.
The reason we're going to wait now is because once I've turned my temperature up to high, this is a steam vent right here.
Okay.
And I want steam to start coming out of this vent.
Okay.
And once the steam starts coming out of this vent, I give it 10 minutes of steaming out.
Okay.
And that means it's taking all of the pressure out of the jar.
Okay.
Excuse me, out of the canner, and it's steaming. And once I've had 10 minutes of this just psh, I'm going to put my weight on here at 10 pounds.
Once it's steaming, you're doing that?
Steaming after 10 minutes. So once this starts
10
steaming,
minutes later, then add that.
Okay. And then I'm going to add this on here.
At what?
On a number 10.
Number 10, okay, got
10
it.
pounds. That's for Texas.
Inscribed 10 there.
It's inscribed on there. It says 10.
Okay.
And what you'll find is at different altitudes, you use different weights.
All right, we're all flatland here.
And we're flatlanders. We're right at coast level, so we're whatever that's called. And so when this is done for 10 minutes, I will drop this on here.
Okay.
And when I drop this on,
you're waiting for it to come back up.
Jiggling.
Mm-hmm.
When it starts jiggling, and it's going to make this horrible noise, and it's irritating. Oh my gosh. When it starts jiggling, I put my timer on for 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
And I like for this thing to jiggle about every 20 seconds.
Okay, so jiggle, turn the timer on for 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
And you want it to jiggle about every few seconds.
Every 10 to 15 seconds or 20, depending.
All right.
But just make sure your pressure is up to 10 pounds.
10 pounds.
It needs to read 10 pounds. If it drops below that,
you got to add water, or
no, you got to add more time.
Add more time. That's right.
So you don't want to. You don't ever want it to let. That's why when you're canning, folks, if I can tell you anything, you stay right here in this area.
Okay.
I don't care if it's an hour and a half that it takes.
Oh,
because
really?
like when I can dry beans, it takes 90 minutes. I have to stay right here in this kitchen because guess what? I don't want to start over on 90 minutes.
Is it safe to say that you might actually be slightly over 10 would be better than being under 10, right? No?
Don't go under 10 and don't go over 10.
Just be at 10.
Just be at 10.
Okay, got it.
Now, if you put this weight on here, I'm not going to say that for a fact. I don't think it can go over 10 pounds because this is going to blow, and it blows past this at 10 pounds.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
all right. So I think that's it for me because it's going to be 2 hours or so.
Yeah,
right?
It's going to be a while.
And then, so the next time you come back, you're coming back alone.
I'll
I'll glue it together. All right. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you much. Okay, we were talking about the pressure coming up and steaming out. Well, if you will listen, you can hear the pressure coming out of the pressure valve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my timer on my stove for 10 minutes. And at 10 minutes, I'll come back and talk to y'all again. Okay, my 10 minutes has elapsed with my steamer coming out the steam bucket. And right now I'm going to take this 10-pound weight. And it says 10 pounds, and I'm going to put it on the steam thing. And I'm going to wait for the jiggling to start. When the jiggling starts, that means that this gauge has gone up to 10 pounds of pressure, which will be right there. So I will come back to y'all in just a few minutes. Okay, folks, we're back over here. We've got about 35 seconds left on the cooking of these beans, or the pressure canning of these beans. And then we will turn it off. and let it set, and I will give you an update shortly. Have a great one. Okay, so we've had about 5 to 7 minutes elapse, and you hear the jiggling of the weight. You see the pressure is up to 10 pounds. So now I set my timer. I'm going to set my timer for 20 minutes, and I'm going to hit start. So we have 20 minutes on the timer, and it's jiggling really fast, so I'm going to turn this temperature down to about medium on my stove, and I'm going to leave this jiggling for 20 minutes, and then I will come back and show you the process at the end. Okay, so we're to the final step of canning of the green beans. I'm going to remove the weight from the canner, and there will be a small amount of pressure that comes off, and when you hear that stop, and you can hear it, it's just making just a little tiny bit of noise, you go ahead and start releasing your tightening bolts that hold the lid in place, and you take these off. And again, it's just a time thing. And I'm going to get those done. And I'm going to look and see how hard it is to get this lid off, because sometimes I have to kind of make a little bit of a pressure adjustment to move it. And the lid moved. And now I can take these off. Oops. Now I'm going to take my trusty little jar grabber, and I'm going to pick up each jar, and I'm going to take it out on the counter. And as I set them out, if they haven't already sealed in the canner, you will hear them start to seal as they sit on the towel. And again, you just leave them setting until they cool. Actually, it says to leave them for 24 hours and without moving them or touching them. And we have just successfully canned 9 quarts of green beans.